The busy New York evening buzzed with energy as Evan Winters checked his Rolex watch. It was 7:55 p.m., and he was 5 minutes early for his business meeting. Perfect. Evan never liked to be late. At 38 years old, he had built his tech company, Green Tech Solutions, from nothing into a $1 billion empire. Time was money, and Evan respected both. The restaurant, Le Jardin, sat on the top floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and floor-to-ceiling windows showed off the glittering city below. Evan straightened his expensive gray suit as the hostess approached. "Mr. Winters, your table is ready," she said with a practiced smile. Evan followed her through the restaurant, nodding at a few familiar faces. Being one of the richest men in America meant he was recognized almost everywhere. The hostess led him to a quiet corner table with a stunning view of Central Park. "Your guest will be with you shortly," she said before walking away. Evan opened his leather portfolio and reviewed his notes. This meeting with potential investors was important for his new sustainable energy project. He needed their support to expand GreenTech's solar panel factories across the country. 15 minutes passed. Evan frowned and checked his watch again. He hated waiting. Just as he was about to call his assistant, he heard the hostess's voice. "Here's your table, ma'am." Evan looked up and froze. Instead of the three older businessmen he expected, a beautiful black woman in a simple but elegant red dress stood before him. Her natural hair was styled in an artistic updo, and she wore minimal jewelry except for small diamond earrings that caught the light. The woman looked equally confused. "I'm sorry, are you Robert?" she asked, her voice soft but confident. Evan stood up, his business manners kicking in. "No, I'm Evan Winters. I think there's been a mistake." The hostess looked at her tablet, eyes widening. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Dr. Johnson, your blind date is at table 12, not 20. Please forgive the mix-up." "Blind date?" Evan asked, raising an eyebrow. The woman sighed. "My colleague insisted I needed to get out more. I'm Maya Johnson, by the way." "Dr. Johnson, what field?" Evan asked, suddenly interested. "Neurosurgery. I specialize in trauma recovery," Maya replied. An awkward moment passed between them. Evan should have let her go to her actual date, but something stopped him. Perhaps it was the intelligence in her eyes or the way she carried herself with quiet dignity. "Well, since you're here, would you like a drink before you meet your date?" Evan gestured to the empty chair. "I seem to have been stood up myself." Maya hesitated but then checked her phone. "Robert is running 20 minutes late anyway." She sat down with a small smile. One drink couldn't hurt. One drink turned into two. Maya was fascinating. She talked about her research, her dreams of opening specialized trauma centers in underserved communities, and her Jamaican-American family. Evan found himself sharing more than he usually did with strangers. His humble beginnings, his passion for clean energy, even his failed marriage. They were laughing over dessert when Maya's phone buzzed. She looked down and her eyes widened. "Oh no, it's been almost 2 hours. My actual date left after waiting for 30 minutes. Evan felt a strange relief. "I think my investors aren't coming either. They're lost, I'd say." Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Neither had expected this connection. The mix-up that should have been a minor inconvenience had turned into something neither could have predicted. "Would you like to have dinner again sometime? Intentionally, this time?" Evan asked. Maya smiled, and Evan felt his heart skip. "I'd like that very much." Little did they know, this mistake would change both their lives forever. 3 days after their accidental meeting, Evan sat in his corner office on the 55th floor of the Green Tech building. The city sprawled below him, but he barely noticed the view. Instead, he kept checking his phone, wondering if he should text Maya again. Their first real date was tonight at 7:00 p.m. Evan had chosen a smaller, less flashy restaurant this time. He wanted to talk with Maya without being interrupted by business associates or people seeking his attention. His assistant, Linda, walked in with a stack of papers. "Your meeting is in 10 minutes, Mr. Winters." Evan nodded, trying to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting to Maya's smile, her intelligent eyes, the way she challenged his ideas without being intimidated by his wealth. Across town at Memorial Hospital, Maya finished a difficult 6-hour surgery. As she washed her hands, Her friend and colleague Dr. Samantha Williams pushed open the door. "So, are you really going out with Evan Winters tonight?" Samantha asked with wide eyes. Maya dried her hands slowly. "Yes, but it's just dinner. Just dinner with one of the richest men in America." Samantha laughed. "The man who changed renewable energy forever. The internet is full of stories about him." "I don't care about his money," Maya said firmly. "He's interesting. He listens. That's rare." "And handsome," Samantha added with a smirk. Maya couldn't help but smile. That too. At 6:55 p.m., Maya arrived at Bella Notte, a small Italian restaurant in the West Village. She wore a simple blue dress and had let her hair down. She wanted Evan to see the real her, not someone trying to impress a billionaire. Evan was already waiting, dressed more casually than before in dark jeans and a button-up shirt. When he saw Maya, his whole face lit up. "You look beautiful," he said, standing to greet her. "Thank you. No suit today," she teased. "I wanted to be just Evan tonight, not Mr. Winters, the CEO." The restaurant was warm and cozy, with soft music playing in the background. Their table was in a quiet corner, away from curious eyes. Over pasta and wine, they talked for hours. Maya told Evan about growing up in a middle-class family in Philadelphia, her struggles through medical school, and her passion for helping patients with traumatic brain injuries. "My mom worked 2 jobs to help pay for my education," she explained. "She always believed in me, even when I doubted myself." Evan listened closely. "My parents wanted me to work in their accounting firm. When I dropped out of college to start my first tech company, they cut me off completely." He twirled pasta on his fork. "We haven't spoken in 15 years. "That must be hard," Maya said softly. "Success was supposed to make me happy," Evan admitted. "But sometimes my apartment feels like the loneliest place in New York." Maya reached across the table and touched his hand. The simple gesture made Evan's heart race. After dinner, they walked through the quiet streets of New York. The night was cool, stars hidden behind the city lights. When they reached the park, Evan stopped. "Maya, I need to be honest with you." Maya tensed, waiting for bad news. "I haven't felt this way about anyone in a very long time," Evan said. "You're different. You see me, not my bank account." Maya relaxed and smiled. "And you see me too, not just a woman to show off or a status symbol. Can I see you again? Maybe this weekend?" Evan asked, suddenly nervous like a teenager, not a powerful businessman. Instead of answering, Maya stood on her tiptoes and kissed him softly. When she pulled away, they were both smiling. "I'll take that as a yes," Evan said. As they parted ways that night, neither realized that their worlds were about to collide in ways they never expected. 3 months into their relationship, Evan and Maya had learned to deal with the media attention. They avoided popular restaurants, went out less, and found peace in private moments. Despite the challenges, they grew closer. Evan had never felt so connected to anyone before. One morning, as they shared breakfast at Evan's penthouse, Maya's phone rang. She answered with a smile that quickly faded. "Yes, Dad. We'll be there." She hung up and looked at Evan nervously. "My parents want to meet you. They've invited us for Sunday dinner in Philadelphia." Evan reached for her hand. "That's good, right?" "My father is protective. He doesn't trust rich people," Maya admitted. "He's spent his life fighting against powerful men who take advantage of others." "I'm not like that," Evan said. Maya squeezed his hand. "I know, but he needs to see that for himself." That Sunday, they drove to Philadelphia in Evan's least flashy car. Maya grew quieter as they approached her childhood home, a modest 2-story house in a middle-class neighborhood. Dr. James Johnson opened the door before they could knock. He was tall like Maya, with gray hair and serious eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Behind him stood Mrs. Johnson, whose warm smile contrasted with her husband's stern expression. "Welcome home, baby girl," Mrs. Johnson said, hugging Maya. Dr. Johnson simply nodded at Evan. "Mr. Winters." The tension followed them to the dining room, where Mrs. Johnson had prepared a feast. Maya's younger brother Michael was also there, watching Evan with curiosity. "So," Dr. Johnson said after they sat down, "you made your billions in green energy." Evan nodded. "Yes, sir. Green tech develops affordable solar technology." And before that? Family money? Dr. Johnson pressed. Dad, Maya warned. It's okay, Evan said. No, sir. I grew up in a middle-class home in Boston. I started my first company from my college dorm room. Dr. Johnson's expression didn't change. And what exactly are your intentions with my daughter? James? Mrs. Johnson scolded. Maya put down her fork. Dad, I'm 35, not 16. I care about your daughter very much, Evan said directly. I respect her work, her mind, and her heart. My intention is to support her dreams, not change them. Dinner continued with careful conversation. As Maya and her mother cleared the dishes, Dr. Johnson invited Evan to his study. The small room was filled with books and framed photographs. Dr. Johnson pointed to one showing him with a group of protesters. I spent my life fighting for equal rights, he said. I've seen how men with power view women who look like my daughter. Evan looked him in the eye. I understand your concern, but I love Maya for who she is, not what she looks like or what she represents. The word love had slipped out naturally. It was the first time Evan had said it, even to himself. Dr. Johnson studied him for a long moment. Maya told us about the tabloids, about the things people are saying. We're handling it, Evan assured him. Are you? Dr. Johnson challenged, because those stories hurt her, whether she admits it or not. Before Evan could respond, his phone rang. He apologized and checked it, planning to ignore the call, but the screen showed his assistant's name with the message. Energy and Silai, your parents are at the office. Ivan's blood ran cold. His parents hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. Now they suddenly appeared? I need to take this, he told Dr. Johnson, stepping into the hallway. 5 minutes later, he returned to the living room where Maya was laughing with her mother. We need to go back to New York, he said tensely. My parents have shown up at my office. Maya looked shocked. Your parents? The ones who? Yes, Evan interrupted. And they're demanding to meet you. The Johnsons exchanged concerned glances as Maya gathered her things. Dr. Johnson pulled Evan aside at the door. Family can be the hardest test of any relationship, he said, his voice softer than before. Be careful with my daughter's heart. Evan nodded, knowing the real challenges were just beginning. The confrontation with Evan's parents had been worse than either of them expected. Richard and Margaret Winters sat stiffly in Evan's office, barely acknowledging Maya's existence. Their words were cold and cutting. Is this why you've been plastered all over those trashy magazines? Margaret had asked, looking Maya up and down. Some kind of rebellion? That's enough, Evan had said, his voice dangerously quiet. You lost the right to comment on my life when you disowned me. Richard Winters stood up, straightening his expensive suit. We came to warn you. The board members called us. They're concerned about the company's image and your distractions. He glanced at Maya. We still have connections, son. Don't throw away everything for a passing fancy. Maya is not a passing fancy, Evan replied. And Green Tech is my company. I built it without your help. After they left, Maya held Ivan while he processed 15 years of bottled-up pain. That night brought them even closer together. 2 weeks later, they had moved past the family drama. Maya was performing complex surgeries at the hospital, and Ivan was finalizing plans for a new solar panel factory in Nevada. Life was busy but good. Until the morning, Maya collapsed in the operating room. Ivan was in a board meeting when he got the call. He left without explanation, racing to Memorial Hospital. He found Maya's colleague, Dr. Samantha Williams, waiting for him in the hallway. What happened? Evan demanded, his heart pounding. She fainted during surgery. Another doctor stepped in. Samantha looked worried. She's been working too hard, skipping meals, staying late. We're running tests now. Evan paced the hospital hallway for hours. Finally, Dr. Chen, the chief of internal medicine, approached him. Mr. Winters, we have some preliminary results. Ivan's world narrowed to the doctor's face. Is she okay? We've discovered abnormalities in her blood work. We need to run more specific tests, but the symptoms point to a possible autoimmune condition. What does that mean? Will she recover? Evan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Many autoimmune conditions are chronic, but manageable with proper treatment. Dr. Chen explained carefully. but we need to confirm the exact diagnosis first. When Evan finally saw Maya, she looked small in the hospital bed. Her usual strength seemed diminished, but her eyes were clear and determined. "You didn't have to come," she said weakly. Evan sat beside her, taking her hand. "Don't be ridiculous." "Of course I did." The next 2 weeks were a blur of tests, specialists, and worried conversations. The final diagnosis came: lupus, an autoimmune disease that could affect multiple organs and would require lifelong management. Maya took the news with the composure of a doctor, asking clinical questions and discussing treatment options. But when the specialists left, she broke down in Evan's arms. "I can't ask you to deal with this," she sobbed. "I'm a doctor. I know what's coming: flare-ups, medications with side effects, possible complications." Evan held her tightly. "You're not asking. I'm choosing to be here. Your life is complicated enough without a sick girlfriend," Maya insisted. "The board already thinks I'm a distraction. If they find out I'm ill, the board works for me, not the other way around," Evan said firmly. "And you're not just my girlfriend, Maya. You're the woman I love." Maya looked up at him, tears still on her cheeks. "You deserve someone whole." "You are whole," Evan whispered. "This disease is something you have, not something you are. We'll face it together." He helped her sit up and pulled something from his pocket, a small notebook. "What's this?" Maya asked. "I've been researching the best lupus specialists in the country. I've made notes on experimental treatments, support groups, everything." He opened the notebook. "I can't cure you, but I can make sure you have the best care possible." Maya stared at his detailed notes, speechless. In that moment, she knew their relationship had changed forever. The next challenge would test them both in ways they never imagined. Maya's recovery was slower than either of them hoped. The medications made her tired and sometimes sick. On bad days, she couldn't get out of bed. On good days, she pushed herself too hard and paid for it later. Through it all, Evan remained steady and supportive. 3 months after her diagnosis, Maya sat on the balcony of Evan's penthouse, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm spring air. Evan brought her tea and sat beside her. "I need to go back to work," Maya said suddenly. "Not surgery, not yet, but I'm going crazy sitting here all day." Evan took her hand. "Are you sure you're ready?" Maya nodded. "The disease is under control for now, and I need purpose, Evan." He understood. For people like them, work wasn't just a job, it was part of who they were. "Actually," Evan said carefully, "I've been thinking about something that might interest you." He explained that Green Tech had been setting aside money for charity, but had never created a formal foundation. He wanted to start one now, focused on healthcare access for poor communities. "I need someone who understands both medicine and compassion to lead it," he finished. "Someone I trust completely." Maya's eyes widened. "You want me to run your foundation?" "I want us to build it together," Evan corrected. "Your medical knowledge and my business connections, equal partners." For the first time in months, real excitement lit up Maya's face. "We could focus on areas with no doctors. Mobile clinics, maybe? Telehealth systems for remote villages?" Evan grinned, relieved to see her passion returning. "Exactly. We'll start small, but I'm thinking global eventually." 2 weeks later, the Winters Johnson Foundation had office space on the 40th floor of the Green Tech building. Maya worked part-time at first, building her strength while developing the foundation's mission and programs. To Ivan's surprise, the board members who had opposed his relationship with Maya now praised the foundation as excellent public relations. Even more surprisingly, some of Green Tech's biggest investors wanted to contribute. One afternoon, Maya sat across from Evan in the foundation office, discussing their first project, a mobile health clinic for rural communities in West Virginia. "We need doctors willing to rotate through the program," Maya said, making notes on her tablet. "Maybe we could offer student loan forgiveness as an incentive." Evan nodded. "Good idea. I'll have the legal team draft something." Maya looked up at him with a small smile. "We make a good team, don't we?" "The best," Evan agreed. Their working relationship brought a new dimension to their romance. They challenged each other, respected each other's expertise, and created something meaningful together. By combining Maya's medical knowledge with Evan's business skills, They developed innovative solutions that neither could have created alone. 6 months after starting the foundation, they launched their first 3 mobile clinics. Maya insisted on traveling to West Virginia for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, despite having just recovered from a lupus flare-up. As they stood together in the small mountain town, watching families line up for free checkups, a local reporter approached them. "Dr. Johnson, Mr. Winters, what inspired you to create these clinics?" he asked. Maya and Evan exchanged glances. They had faced so many obstacles: health challenges, family disapproval, public scrutiny, and corporate politics. Yet here they were, making a real difference. "Everyone deserves good health care," Maya answered simply. "We wanted to use our skills to make that happen." "And was it difficult, working together as a couple?" the reporter pressed. Evan put his arm around Maya's shoulders. "Actually, it made everything better. We're stronger together than apart." Later that night in their hotel room, Maya showed Evan the preliminary reports from the clinic's first day. 87 patients seen, 12 serious conditions identified, 35 children vaccinated. "This is just the beginning," she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Think of how many people we can help." Evan kissed her gently. "I'm so proud of us." Neither of them could have predicted what was coming next. A challenge that would test their partnership like never before. 1 year after launching the Winters Johnson Foundation, Maya and Evan had established 8 mobile clinics across America and were planning their first international project. Maya's health had stabilized with only occasional flare-ups, and she had even returned to surgery on a limited schedule. Their relationship was stronger than ever, and Evan was secretly shopping for engagement rings. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning when Dr. Chen walked into Maya's office at the foundation. "I need to speak with you both," he said, his expression serious. Maya called Evan, and they sat together as Dr. Chen explained that the World Health Organization was creating a special medical initiative in Ethiopia. The program would bring advanced medical care to rural areas affected by civil conflicts. "They need a neurosurgeon to lead the trauma unit," Dr. Chen said, looking at Maya. "Someone who can train local doctors. I recommended you." Maya's eyes widened. "Me? But my condition is well managed now," Dr. Chen interrupted. "And they have excellent medical facilities in Addis Ababa where you'd be based." Evan watched Maya's face carefully. He could see the excitement building in her eyes, the way it did whenever she faced a meaningful challenge. "How long would this assignment last?" Evan asked quietly. 2 years minimum," Dr. Chen replied. The room fell silent. 2 years apart would be nearly impossible for them. Evan's business was in New York. The foundation was here. His entire life was built in America. "When do they need an answer?" Maya asked. "End of the week," Dr. Chen said before leaving them alone. For 3 days, Maya and Evan barely discussed the opportunity, both afraid of what it might mean for their relationship. On the third night, Evan found Maya on the penthouse balcony, looking out at the city lights. "You want to go?" Evan said. It wasn't a question. Maya turned to him, her eyes filled with conflict. This program could save thousands of lives. Children who've suffered brain injuries during the conflict could recover and have normal lives. "But," Evan prompted. "But I love you," Maya said simply. "I love our life together. I love what we built." Evan took her hands in his. "What if you didn't have to choose?" Maya shook her head. "Evan, this isn't something you can fix with money. You can't just build another green tech in Ethiopia." "No," Evan agreed, "but I can rebuild how green tech operates." For the next 48 hours, Evan barely slept. He met with his executive team, his board of directors, and his top engineers. There was resistance, especially from older board members who didn't understand his vision. 2 even threatened to resign. When he finally explained his plan to Maya, she was stunned. "You're going to run green tech remotely?" she asked in disbelief. "Not entirely," Evan explained. "I'm restructuring the company. My COO will handle day-to-day operations. I'll travel back for quarterly board meetings and major decisions. But your investors?" "Some are unhappy," Evan admitted. "Johnson Capital is pulling their funding. But most understand that this is the future of global business. Virtual leadership, distributed teams." "And the foundation?" Maya asked. We'll expand to Ethiopia. We'll open clinics there too, partner with the WHO program. Evan squeezed her hands. We built this together, Maya. We're not walking away from it. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You would change your entire company for me. For us, Evan corrected. For what we can accomplish together. This is bigger than green tech or my ego. 2 weeks later, Maya accepted the WHO position. The business world was shocked by Evan's announcement that he would be splitting his time between New York and Ethiopia. Stock prices dipped temporarily before stabilizing. Some business magazines criticized him for putting romance before responsibility. The night before they left for Ethiopia, Evan's parents unexpectedly arrived at their apartment. Margaret Winters stepped forward first. We were wrong about you, she said to Maya. About both of you. Richard nodded stiffly. What you're doing takes courage. We wanted to wish you good luck. As their plane took off the next morning, Maya squeezed Evan's hand. Are you sure about this? Evan smiled. I'd never been more sure of anything in my life. 2 years passed quickly in Ethiopia. The medical program thrived under Maya's leadership, saving hundreds of lives and training dozens of local doctors in advanced neurological procedures. The Winters Johnson Foundation opened 5 clinics across the country, bringing health care to remote villages that had never seen a doctor before. Evan adapted to his new life with surprising ease. He split his time between Ethiopia and New York, using technology to run green tech from anywhere in the world. After the initial adjustment period, the company actually grew stronger, expanding into African markets that Evan might never have explored otherwise. On their last night in Ethiopia, Evan took Maya to dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the city of Addis Ababa. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples as they sat on the terrace. I can't believe we're leaving tomorrow, Maya said, looking out at the city that had become their second home. Part of me doesn't want to go. We can always come back, Evan reminded her. The foundation will continue here. Maya nodded, twisting her engagement ring, a simple but elegant diamond that Evan had given her 6 months into their Ethiopian adventure. Their wedding had been postponed until their return to America, where both their families could attend. I have something for you, Evan said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Maya opened it and gasped. Inside was a deed to a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn. I thought we could use a fresh start, Evan explained. Not my penthouse or your apartment. Something that's ours from the beginning. It's perfect, Maya whispered, leaning across the table to kiss him. The next morning, they said emotional goodbyes to their Ethiopian colleagues and boarded the private jet that would take them home. Maya slept against Evan's shoulder while he gazed out the window, reflecting on how much had changed since that mistaken blind date 2.5 years ago. They arrived in New York to find both their families waiting, the Johnsons standing somewhat awkwardly beside the Winters. Over the past 2 years, these once opposed families had slowly built their own relationship, united by their love for Maya and Evan. Welcome home, darling, Mrs. Johnson said, hugging Maya tightly. Dr. Johnson shook Evan's hand with genuine warmth. The hospital board is very interested in the techniques you developed in Ethiopia, he told his daughter. And green tech stock is up 12%, Richard Winters added, clapping his son on the shoulder. Your remote leadership model is being studied at Harvard Business School now. 6 weeks later, Maya and Evan married in a beautiful ceremony at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. It wasn't the flashy celebrity wedding that tabloids had predicted. Instead, it was intimate and meaningful, with only close friends and family present. During their first dance, Evan held Maya close, still amazed that a simple mix-up at a restaurant had led to this moment. Any regrets? He asked softly. Maya looked up at him. About what? Any of it. The media attention, the health scares, Ethiopia. Not one, Maya said firmly. Every challenge made us stronger. Later that night, Maya tossed her bouquet straight to Samantha Williams, who had supported them from the beginning. Evan's former assistant Linda caught the garter, blushing furiously as Michael Johnson winked at her from across the room. As they drove away from the reception, Maya rested her head on Evan's shoulder. So what's next for us? She asked. Whatever we want, Evan replied. The foundation is expanding. Green Tech is developing new solar technology for developing countries. and Memorial Hospital wants you to head their new international trauma center. Sounds busy, Maya laughed. Too busy? Evan asked, suddenly serious. Maya shook her head. Not as long as we're together. Their story had become something of a modern fairy tale, featured in medical journals and business magazines rather than tabloids now. They had redefined what success meant, not through wealth or status, but through impact and love. The mistaken blind date that brought a billionaire and a brilliant neurosurgeon together had changed not only their lives but thousands of others, and they were just getting started.